Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Podcast. I'm back here with Ben, and we have some questions for each other. Welcome back, Ben.
Welcome back. Good to be back. As we always do, we're going to start off with some rapid fire questions. We're going to ask concise questions, yes or no. These questions have not been rehearsed,
No.
unscripted. We'd like the audience to follow along. Give us your answers as well as we ask these rapid fire questions. And I'll let Platini go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you. Is climate change real?
Yes.
Okay.
Is law and order important for a democracy?
Yes. When you look at African countries and where they stand economically, do you think we should be blaming the Western world for interference?
Yes. Is obesity a real disease?
Yes.
Okay.
Should we give reparations to African Americans for what was done to them during slavery?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben.
Would you, Platini, officiate a gay wedding?
No.
All right.
All right. On the rapid fire round, I asked you if climate change was real, and you said yes.
Yes, because I believe in the professionals on this issue. Right. We have to follow the science. That's the option that we have. So we have folks who have studied this issue for their entire careers and have all the evidence that they can provide us. And then we also do have a lot of folks taking a political angle on it who are not scientists. And so between those two parties, I would choose to follow the scientists on this issue. What are your feelings on it?
Well, I think it is a progressing issue because if you look at the way even our weather here today is, it is not how it was 50 years ago. But I do not think the problem is that pressing to become such a major issue today.
So what do you think is causing wildfires in California at the moment?
Well, you can relate it to climate change somehow, but have there not always been fires in California?
Not to this degree.
Yeah,
Right.
because we had these crazy winds today that made it escalate to this degree.
So
It doesn't mean that climate change
Sure.
is the primary cause of these fires.
But if someone who's studies this as a career is saying that is the cause of it, what would be your answer to them?
Well, if the research has been done and it's been
has.
proven, then of course I will accept the fact that climate change is a primary cause of these fires in California.
Let me ask you this: if there are folks who have no relation to the scientific field, right,
Yes.
who are making an argument that climate change is not real or not as intense as what scientists are saying, what do you think their motivation would be to say that climate change is not a real threat? Those folks on a political spectrum, what do you think their motivation would be to say that it's not real?
It will be different for every individual. We cannot just look for one common reason why all of them would say that. Some might be motivated maybe because of the businesses they're involved in. Some might just not want to cause a major panic into the public space. But at the end of the day, we can't have a specific answer for all of them.
So I'll tell you one thing that many of these folks
Yeah.
who are, I guess, climate change deniers, whatever you may call them, I'll tell you one thing majority of them have in common,
What's that?
and that's that they're affiliated with the oil industry.
I pointed that out. Maybe some of them might have their businesses going on that they don't want to get them affected if they were to put that out there and support it full time. But yeah.
Now,
Yo-
to be fair, with that point, greenhouse gases are not the only cause, and big oil is also not even the primary cause
Okay.
of CO2 emissions. It's actually surprising to most people, is the agriculture business
Agriculture.
around the world. And so this produces I think nearly a third of the gases that are emitted. And it also produces methane, which is even more harmful than CO2.
Okay. So, all right, when you look at these people that are out here in, especially in the Western world, protesting against climate change, some of them go to the extent of blocking roads. Some of them go into the extent of vandalizing monumental real estates.
The protesters, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you think that is the right way to go about this battle against climate change?
Well, let me comment on protests in general.
Yeah.
Because protests, they do only work if you disrupt, right? And so I've been a part of protests, not in particular with climate change. And one of the common things you hear is, why do they want to, just to get our attention, why do they want to block the roads or do all of these things? That's what a protest is. And it's also a part of the Constitution that people have the right to protest for their right, right?
So you think
that's the part of the U.S. Constitution.
And they vandalize buildings?
It depends. It depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a complicated issue because we saw that happen in Minneapolis, in our very own city, right? In the wake of the George Floyd killing, we saw, parts of our city burn, which no one wants to see. It was, in fact, my old neighborhood over in South Minneapolis, and a lot of small, locally owned, minority-owned companies in that particular area. So it's not what many people want to see, but it's also important to remember one specific thing about those protests. Charges were not pressed against the officers who killed George Floyd until half the country nearly burned down. And so people don't remember that,
I think it is a little bit unfair to people that were out there protesting for George Floyd when you kind of like associate a protest like that to the one that these extremists carry when they are trying to make a statement on climate change. Because they literally marched into museums, put glue on their hands, and then glue themselves into artifacts, priceless artifacts.
Okay. I mean, that's a different example of a protest.
That's the protest I was talking about. I wasn't talking about the regular protest that people go out to try to get a statement out.
To your question, I would not, I guess, support destroying
That's what
art.
I was getting to. Yeah.
I support protest, though. I support the protests in general, the right to protest, and the fact that it causes disruption. That's the point of a protest, right? We're not protesting to be polite. That people don't march in the streets, go out in the cold, close down I-94 because they're bored. They do it because there's a need to get people's attention and to call attention to a certain issue that's happening.
Okay.
And so, I mean, look, climate change and the causes of it are one of the most urgent yet most ignored issues that we face right now. Because, look, a lot of us don't want to think about the impacts that even us personally are having on the environment. Like, every one of us has our own footprint, right? Carbon footprint, as they call it, and we all have an impact on what's happening to the world, whether we like it or not. So it's hard to want to take personal responsibility for that. And honestly, it is the fact that unless massive corporations around the globe start taking concrete action, then not much can change, right? So it's a little bit of a helpless feeling, but that's the reason for protesting, is to get their attention.
Yeah, even if we were to get their attention and they started taking accountability and start implementing some regulations to reduce the amount of waste they release into our atmosphere, that still doesn't stop the fact that when you go to less developed countries, they don't have any regulations around this. And we share the same ozone layer. We share the same atmosphere with them. So even if you were to go out here in America, you protest all you want, get the regulations passed here, they're not going to affect an average farmer in Kenya.
It's a global issue.
Yeah, it's a global issue.
It's a global issue, absolutely.
How do you think we can manage to get to that point where the entire world is addressing that?
To set an example. Look, that's how it works on any global issue, is that the countries that have the power and the means to do so can set an example. And that's what's expected of, I mean, the U.S., other major nations, on a lot of things, right? Not just climate change. It's expected that we set an example when it comes to peace efforts, when it comes to other global, you know,
Human rights.
disease prevention, all sorts of
Yeah.
issues that affect everyone.
I'm following you, but from an African perspective, it is very difficult. It is not even a problem. It is not even something that an average African government would table, because they are more concerned with more pressing matters, things that are affecting the people right now. They are not worried about what it might affect the world in 50 years from today. So even if the United States and other big countries like China were to try to make this a global issue and take it down there, educate people to adopt this and try to control the amount of waste we are releasing into our atmosphere and into our society, it's still not going to be that important to the average African man when they are still worried about where their next meal is going to come from, when they're
Yeah.
still worried about basic life necessities. You get it? So to me, I feel like climate change is the fight against climate change, the fight against global warming is already a lost battle. They can prevent it. They can try to reduce the damage and prolong it, but to completely defeat global warming, climate change is a lost battle, because we share one atmosphere with a lot of other nations that will not adopt any precautions.
I mean, the attitude you describe about African populations is not unique even to Africa. It's people in every major population are worried about other things.
Yeah.
And so nobody's primary concern is all the little impacts that they're having on the environment. Um, that includes all of us. Look, all of us get up every day. We have other things to worry about in our lives.
Absolutely.
We have to feed our families, go to work, all of these things. And so we're not taking precaution at every step of the way to make sure that we're not hurting the environment. And that's so that's not unique to any in particular country. It's which is why there has to be an example set. But to your point, there already has been irreversible damage done to the planet. A lot of irreversible. So at this point, it's about damage.
Damage control, preventing
essentially.
the degree to which this damage is
Yeah.
occurring.
And until people take seriously the true causes, which, like I mentioned, are agriculture, animal agriculture, for one, is actually the number one cause. And people, including the media, don't want to mention that, because that would be going against a lot of their sponsors in the media, fast food and major agriculture. But that is the main cause, because it's creating insane amounts of greenhouse gases, but it's also using massive amounts of water for farming. It's creating insane amounts of pollution, and they're just tearing down forests across the entire world in order to graze more cattle, because they're fast food restaurants popping up all over the world, places where they never were before. You can go to Asia, get McDonald's now.
They need to supply.
And because of that, exactly. They need to supply, so they're tearing down the rainforests in order so that there's more McDonald's. And that's the number one cause of global warming, of climate change. Pardon me, is animal agriculture. Nobody knows that, but that's the number one way as an individual that you could reduce your footprint is honestly by eating less fast food, eating less meat overall. Doesn't mean you have to go vegetarian, but you can reduce your footprint by consuming less of that product.
Okay. Well, a lot of people right now, they hear us when we talk about climate change, but they are not worried about it because it is not something that is affecting us right now. Because when we look at climate change generally, most of the major catastrophes that might be that might be as a result of climate change are only estimated to happen over a century from today. So it is not something that is immediately affecting the lives of the average man right now. So would you say to those people that are not worried about it because it's not affecting their lives today?
It is affecting our lives, and it's we always think that way, that until our homes are underwater, it's not
Until it's
affecting us.
almost apocalyptic.
Um,
Yeah.
right, but that is happening in certain areas. I mean, because of climate change, we're having extreme waves of either um, extreme waves of rain and flooding,
Tornadoes,
tornadoes, or we're having extreme waves of
drought,
drought and dryness, which leads to the wildfires.
wildfires.
And that's a direct result of the climate change. And so it is already happening. But even for some of us living in areas like Minnesota, we may think we're not impacted directly. But look at I mean, we're already it was a last year or a couple of years ago, we were getting the smoke coming in from Canada from the Canadian wildfires.
Actually, it was last year.
Yeah. And there are other impacts, right? There
Well,
are
if you
other
look
impacts.
at our city today, I don't think the amount of snow we're getting this winter is the same we got 5 years ago. It's here.
Yeah.
The signs might not be major, but it's here. Climate change is here. So
It's
yeah.
real.
So what advice would you give to us to make sure that we preserve this beautiful planet that has been gifted to us and hand it to the next generation without destroying it?
What advice would I give
Yes.
to the next generation?
No, to us now. So
To
that
us, okay.
we can preserve this beautiful gift and pass it to the next generation without completely damaging it.
I mean, we have to think about more sustainable ways, and this, I mean, this is a generic answer, but by sustainable ways of living, I mean, you can shop from local farms, for example. And as I mentioned, as an individual, these are the things you can actually do that have the biggest impact. I read that you could, as a comparison, right? You could go for an entire year without using paper. That would save 8 trees, something like that. Versus if you went, I believe it was a month without eating beef, you would save 3,200 trees. And so that's for one person. And so like we're over here, like as society trying to recycle everything and be perfect about not wasting or using too much paper and all of this. The reality is that's not doing shit. All right. Sorry to put it bluntly. The number one thing you could do is not support massive factory farms. And unfortunately, that's about 99% of the meat that's provided comes from those farms. So, I mean, the things that I do personally is I shop locally. I go to the local co-op here in the Twin Cities, the Wedge Co-op, shout out. And I get stuff from local farms. And that makes a huge difference. And because of that, I'm better than everybody else. No, that's a joke. But that would be my advice to everybody, right?
Okay.
Is to think about the ways as an individual, because we're not going to be able to impact what the massive corporations are doing, but we can make daily decisions that do impact. And the more people that are doing that, the more impact it's going to have.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I did ask you, is law and order important in a democracy? You said yes. Why is that? What do you see? First of all, what do you see as law and order? What needs to be in place for there to be law and order, and why is that important?
I believe for there to be law and order, we need regulations, and we must stick to the constitution of the land, the laws of the land, because you cannot have a democracy if the rules that have been set to help us function are constantly being violated. It will not work. Yeah, everybody, like, what prevents a politician from doing anything that they want and getting away with it? It is only the laws of the land that prevents them from doing that.
So do you think that everyone should be held accountable and for example, arrested or prosecuted to the same extent, whether they are a politician, a powerful business person, or just an average citizen? Do you think the law, basically that no one is above the law?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Absolutely. Everybody should be persecuted. If you commit a crime, you should serve the time. Yeah. If you commit a crime, you should serve the time. No one should be above the law, even though we know, based on recent events, that some people seems to be a little bit above the law. Some people seem to get special treatments when it comes to the law. But yeah,
You don't say.
yeah, no one should be above the law.
Interesting. So what about, for example, should someone who is a felon be able to run for office?
Well, that, from the research I did and from following a lot of scholars, that was uncharted territory in America. But it all depends on the country you're in and the constitution of that country. But in America, we saw that happen here because they didn't have laws around that. It was something that has never happened before. So they didn't exactly know how to handle something like that. They had a political candidate that was really powerful and was the number one pick for his political party, running for office, and he had this huge public support, and he had a huge court case at the same time that he ended up getting persecuted for, and and he was charged for. But before this happened, he was already in the race, and this is something that has never happened in this country before. So they didn't know how to handle this. I was seeing even lawyers super confused about how to handle the entire situation. But if you ask me my personal opinion, because I can't give you a professional opinion since these are uncharted territories, my personal opinion is, well, no, you should not be allowed to proceed. Because if I'm a felon and I've been convicted, I will not be allowed to get certain jobs. If I put my application,
That's true.
they would toss it out the window.
You would be automatically disqualified from certain roles.
Thank you.
If you were a felon.
Because of that, I would say personally for me, again, this is not professional because there's no data. This has not been charted before. This is something that has never occurred before, so it wasn't in our constitution yet. But personally for me, I think if you are a felon, you should not be allowed to run for office. And this is coming from someone that voted for Donald Trump. I voted for Donald Trump in these elections. But because other people that have criminal records will not be allowed to work certain jobs, he shouldn't have been allowed to run to begin with.
So you think he should be disqualified from it?
He won. He's already the president. He cannot be disqualified. Now.
Well, he was charged prior.
Yeah. No.
And this will be, and he's not president yet, by the way.
Yeah.
He hasn't been sworn in, but he has been convicted.
He's been convicted
of 34 felony counts.
Yeah.
So he is a convicted felon officially.
Now he is also the president-elect. These are uncharted territories. If you ask me if he should be disqualified,
well,
I would say a fat
people. No. So it's not completely uncharted.
It's completely uncharted. This has never happened anywhere before.
This exact scenario has never happened. But we've had presidents who have broken the law, and what happened was the president was actually in office. Richard Nixon was impeached, removed from office, and convicted. And so presidents absolutely in the past have been held accountable.
Well, he has been charged, right? So here's what I would tell you. I do not think he should be disqualified because he was the choice of the people. Yeah. When he gets into office, if you want to impeach him, you can try to.
Yes. So I mean, you said,
he should have been disqualified.
That nobody is above the law. That's what you said.
He should have been disqualified to begin with, not to be in the presidential race. But somehow
it's not about should have. It's not about should have, though. I'm asking. You told me when you answered the question.
Yes, he won the elections.
Whether or not anyone is above the law. You said no. Now it sounds like you think he is above the law.
I don't think he is above the law. I think they saw his resume, they gave him the job. So let him start the job. You can't see somebody's resume, you can't see their criminal record, you give them the job, and then before they take the job, you want to kick them back out. How is that fair to them? You gave them you gave him the job. All of this was
here. So what argument is that? I mean, you're saying, so if I hide my criminal record and then I get a job.
Did he hide anything?
No, but what point exactly are you making?
My point is, if you were going to disqualify him, don't wait to get beat because he beat your candidate, then disqualify him when
That's
he's
not what
elected.
happened. These charges were pressed years ago.
So why wasn't this an issue before the elections? Why didn't
It was.
So why wasn't he stopped before the elections? Does it seem fair to you that
I think that no, I don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think
Does it seem fair to you? I haven't landed. Does it seem fair to you that he won the elections? Fair and square. And then you want him to be disqualified?
No, you're saying it in the wrong order. He was already a convicted felon before he won the election.
So why didn't you disqualify him before the elections?
Why didn't I?
I'm just asking
not
generally.
a federal judge.
No. I mean, not you specifically as Ben. I mean, generally for those that.
I mean, it sounded like we both agreed that like no one should be above the law, right?
But he won the elections, right?
Yeah.
And before the election day, everybody had this criminal record out. It was already out in the public. So don't you think you should be holding your lawmakers of the land accountable for not disqualifying him before that?
Yes.
Yeah. You should be holding them accountable, but now he won. Fair and square. And then you want him disqualified today.
So he's still a felon.
Well, we're going to have a felon for a president then.
Which means he's above the law.
When he gets in power, like I said, when I answered your question, I rightly stated that due to recent events, some people are clearly treated differently. I didn't argue that. Did I argue that fact? I'm not contradicting myself. That's exactly what I said.
Obviously, we can agree on the fact that the justice system in this country is very flawed.
That's exactly what I said.
In favor of people in powerful positions. So the question that I asked you is that right? And if you agree that is not right,
no,
then
I already agreed a long time ago that was not right. Immediately you asked me if the justice system was fair. When I answered and I said no, it's not fair because it treats some people differently. I clearly meant it wasn't right. Yeah. So what is happening right now, what we're seeing in America, I cannot sit here being a moral, being an educated individual and say it's right. It is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think precautions should have been done prior to the elections because right now, honestly, I've seen something that is happening on Twitter. It's like a left-wing kind of trend that they are calling for some form of disqualification. No, that is also out of our constitution. We don't get to disqualify presidents before they are sworn in. It is also not the law. It is against the law of the land. You don't. If a president wins elections, you cannot disqualify them before they are sworn in. Maybe get him in office. When he's in office, you can bring all the cases you want. Try as much as possible.
That's
him. Now that's within the law.
That's two different issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, talking about disqualifying a president.
You said that. I'm just saying this because you mentioned that. You did mention that. Well, should he be disqualified? And I said no.
If you believe in law and order, then he should. Because
if you believe in law,
that would mean no one's above the law, and then he should be in prison.
And again,
if he was treated the same as anybody else who was, whether they were rich or whether they had been president or not, they would be in jail.
Maybe my thoughts might be a little bit foggy about the laws of the land. But I'm going to ask you a question. Is it the law of the land that a president gets disqualified before they get in power?
If he's treated the same as any other citizen, yes. And that's the question I'm asking here. Should law and order apply to everybody? And the reason that's an important question is because the party that likes to preach about law and order is actually, it seems to have a lot of criminals in their midst. Trump is just one example, and he's obviously the prime example because he's now the president in a few days.
My friend.
But there's a lot of convicted folks over in that Republican Party.
My friend. Do not make the mistake to think that the other side is pure. Let me tell you something today.
Before you even go there.
Up there. Up there. Let me be very honest with you. Up there. If we are going to go in there and start looking at everything that is in their closet, no one should be up there. Let's look. Up there.
Let's look.
No one should be up there that is up there.
No, let's look. There's because this is an argument that everyone always likes to make that, it's a generalist type of statement. Well, it's bad on both sides of the political spectrum.
It doesn't make it okay. Don't get me wrong. When
that's technically true, but it's a very false equivalency because one side is way, way worse. And so, you could always find bad on anywhere you look. But when one party is in the pocket of the NRA and the big oil, and they're also pedophiles and electing convicted people That doesn't really happen
So we
on
have,
the other side.
we have
It's not
pedophiles
so
up
much.
there that have been proven to be guilty of this crime, and they're up there because I
Yes.
didn't know of anyone.
Matt Gates.
So
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz has been officially convicted. He's appeared before a judge and a jury and was convicted for this crime, or you just saying it based off something?
It's based on his own party's report that just came out.
Okay, so
I don't. In terms of the,
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of things that were in the report. In terms of whether he was charged with that, I don't know the exact details. Whether that was in the report, it said he had been. I think he might have been charged. I don't know. I'll have to confirm.
just observing this our beautiful society today that is crumbling so fast, I've realized something, that this statement that everyone is innocent until proven guilty no longer applies. And this is not only about politicians, don't get me wrong. I'm also looking at people down in our level right here, people that are just civilians. I look at how when somebody get accused of sexual harassment, any of these things, somehow before they even get in front of the jury of their peers and the judge and make their case, we already condemn them. Which is not, that's not the law of the land. It's not supposed to be like that. So we cannot talk about law and order and try to bend it in a way that it only favors us. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. If he already prior to this appeared in front of a judge and was convicted for this, then it would be a whole different thing, because evidence have been provided, he has been convicted. So why is he not in jail? That's something different. But if he was just some report, some rumors, or maybe some journal you read and you call him a pedophile like that,
there was a congressional report.
Then you're in the bunch.
There was
making that mistake.
It was it was a very official report, and it was done by Congress.
Okay, so in Congress, it was
and by
practically proven that he was a pedophile.
Yes.
Then why is he not in jail?
He should be. We get back to the
then
issue.
It goes back to then it goes back
powerful
again.
People.
Yeah, we have to take it back to our lawmakers, because if this man has been,
he is a lawmaker.
He's just one man. There's how many of them? 43.
Yeah, I think we can establish that it's a. I mean that the government is not functioning.
Oh yeah,
as it should be.
Sorry, is it 443 in House?
But the responsibility that so the House of Congress has 400 something representatives.
Yeah. So
the Senate has 50.
The Senate only has 50. I think it was 100.
Or 100 total. You're right. Yeah, 52 per the 50 states. So there's 100 senators. There's 430 some House representatives in Congress.
He's just one man. So if he has been convicted and proven to be guilty, he should be held accountable.
At the root of it, though, is that, right, we have, I mean, that voters are choosing to elect someone that they know to be sketchy for just purely out of the basis, usually, of political ideology. And so it's at the end of the day, the government is not functioning
the way it should.
Absolutely as it should, but that's the fault of people who are willing to vote for someone like Trump or like Matt Gaetz, because if you want a clean system, probably don't elect criminals. That might be a good way to get a better system, and they're getting votes
again.
So
again, I see people that have been accused, or at least we saw people that have been accused.
Well, now we've seen people who have been convicted.
Yeah,
and they're in the White House.
But before we saw someone that was accused. That's it, right there. When somebody's accused, they are not a criminal yet. And that's how the society should be functioning. Because again, I'm not really worried about politicians, because they're going to have their political friends cover them at the end of the day. I'm worried about us down here. When somebody gets accused, they get treated like they've been convicted, which is a very bad thing. They pull their brand deals. Family treats them differently. Friends don't want to associate with them. Right now, you're sitting here, very responsible member of the society, contributing a lot. Someone that is very loved and respected. If somebody was to just make a false accusation against you today, you would train in the Twin Cities. And everybody would not want to be around you, without even knowing for real if that was the truth. They would not even give you the benefit of that to see
I would get canceled.
Get in front of a judge. So that's a problem.
No, absolutely. Also,
based on now talking about political criminals, let's pull the plug. Let's get the Jeffrey Epstein list out, and let's follow it and see who was on it and who wasn't. Then before we start pointing fingers on which side is bad, which side is good.
I thought they did put that list down.
I saw a lot of names on there from both sides. So what I'm saying is I'm not gonna call anyone a criminal until they get in front of a judge and get sentenced. So let's follow that list. If we want to clean up every criminal in our system, let's follow that list. Bring that list forward. Let's chase all those people. In fact, let's forget about Didi for a second. Bring that list, the Jeffrey Epstein list. Let's chase everybody on that list. Let's see if anybody is gonna be left in DC.
Yeah, I don't know that that's gonna be the right process for law and order. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that list. I mean, a lot of people associate
on.
Yeah, but that list is just a list of people who associated with him. That's a lot of people, especially in politics, will associate with a very wealthy person.
Yeah.
Not because that doesn't mean they're a criminal. It means that they want money. But
yes, sir, absolutely, I agree with you, sir. I wasn't saying.
To your point, yes. Here, the bottom line is this.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Guilty. That's the point I was trying to get.
That is how the system should work.
Should work.
You know, and in a lot of cases, very public cases, we see people who, the media goes crazy because the media, I mean, you know, the media in this country and, you know, probably a lot of places, they're obsessed with sensationalism. And so, you know, people think like CNN or any of these cable news networks that people whine that they're liberal or something. That's not the case at all. These networks are all owned by rich Republicans, but what they are is they're obsessed with viewership and ratings. And so they'll talk about whatever sounds the craziest.
Thank you.
So they're going to talk about Trump because he always sounds crazy. They're going to talk about, you know, people being accused of this and that. And so media does blow these things up and make people sound guilty before they may have been proven so. You know.
So here's the thing. When I talked about this Jeffrey Epstein case, I wasn't referring to them as like, I wasn't trying to condemn them because, again, they haven't been in front of a judge. I didn't see any evidence. But I think if we want to clean up the system and maintain law and order like you ask, such a case, such a lead that is that powerful should totally be followed by the FBI to the end. They should take that list, break it down, do the most thorough investigation that this land has ever seen.
Yeah, well, I think we all know the reason why that won't happen is because of how many powerful people are on that list. Look, I mean, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his
allegedly.
Well, there's no possible way that can happen in a high security place. I mean, look, these places are designed to prevent people from getting hurt.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of very suspicious activity around that, and at the root of it is that there are very, very powerful people who were associated with Jeffrey Epstein, and they won't be prosecuted because, back to the original point, right? The system is not equal. Law and order is not equally applied.
Has never.
And it works in the favor of the most wealthy and powerful
historically,
people.
And it's not happening today.
It wasn't designed even to function that way, right? I don't want to get into professor mode as I sometimes do, but the local police precincts were actually formed originally to chase down runaway slaves.
Oh yeah,
that's what originally local police stations were created for, and so the very foundation of the law and order
was to chase slaves.
Was founded on prejudice and on bias, and they still function that way today.
You know, something that I really observe, especially during these past elections, is the majority of Americans don't even understand that this has never been about being a Democrat or a Republican. When you really look into this, it has always been about the rich and the poor. Because at the end of the day, I don't think when these people get into a room, all of them being super rich, being billionaires and all, controlling the stock market, they are worried about this person is from the blue, this person is from the red party, this person is white, this person is black. I feel like all this division is just to keep us down here confused, so that up there they can keep doing whatever it is they're doing. And that's why law and order can never really truly be fair.
Well, that's a common attitude. especially that younger generations is becoming more common among younger generations that that supposedly it doesn't matter who you vote for at the end of the day, because at the end of the day you're still getting some very rich and powerful person into leadership. That's not completely untrue, but it's also a simplified way of looking at things, right? Because you can look, and majority of people don't, but you can look very specifically at policies that different parties push. And what I've seen studying this over the decades is neither party is perfect at all. They're far from it. Democrats have made mistakes when they had chances to do things. Republicans have done a lot of terrible things. But some folks in government are trying. They are trying really hard to help people out and to help the middle class, to create jobs, these kinds of things. And the trend is that the majority of those people who are really working hard to try to help people all happen to be Democrats. That's what I've noticed over the years in studying politics. And so it's not untrue that, I mean, there's bad happening on both sides, and that they're, at the end of the day, a lot of these politicians, regardless of party, are working for corporate interests. They're about the money. They're about consolidating the power.
I think
policies do matter.
I think from my own knowledge that I've gathered so far when it comes to American politics, there is not a party that is working for the good of anybody more than the other one. All of them are the
No,
same.
you have to look at their policies.
You brought up this idea of convicting politicians if they are above the law. We all agree that should be the case. But that's not going to happen. I saw a lot of people that were really angry, especially on the social media space when President Joe Biden pardoned his son after he was convicted, of course. And I was like, I looked at it and I understood right away. I should be mad. I should be angry because I've seen how they've dragged Trump on the media and all whatnot. But for some reason, Hunter Biden just had a clean break. Nobody cared. Everybody was like, oh, yeah. But I understood because that's a father and he's about to be out of office. I would do same as Joe Biden. So I wouldn't blame him.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, Biden is making a family decision.
Thank you. So when Democrats do make this argument that Trump should be in jail, let's sometimes look at the mirror, So let's sometimes always remember that there's Hunter Biden right there, let's.
Well, Hunter Biden's not a politician.
No, no one. When we are making an argument that no one should be above the law, let's also look at that, because that is someone that shouldn't be above the law.
Well, he was.
I think most Republicans understand, because I didn't really see Republicans, like a lot of them, making a fuss. It's funny because most Republicans were laid back when he pardoned Hunter Biden, which is understandable, because if you're a logical and a reasonable man, that's something that a father should always do.
Yeah, so I want to be clear. There have been politicians who have gone to prison. So some of them are still serving in prison. Mm-hmm. There was a Democratic governor of Illinois who was convicted of fraud and some other things and went to prison.
Oh, really?
So there have been politicians who have actually paid the price. And on both sides. And so there's examples of that. It's not just that everybody just gets off, that they're all criminals who just get away with anything. But it is becoming harder for that to happen, in part because it used to be the case that when someone was found to have done something wrong, that was something that both parties could agree on, that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be breaking the law.
Yeah.
Now it's become to the point where if someone's found to do something wrong, they turn it into a political issue.
I think the reason
breaking the law shouldn't be a political issue.
I think the reason for that, Ben, is most people are no longer going into politics or analyzing politics from a logical standpoint. They go with emotions. Because most people now, the way me and you sitting here having these conversations, knowing fully well you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, most people cannot do this. They can't. Because they just feel like if you're a Republican, you shouldn't be on the same table with me. They are going with it emotionally.
Yeah.
So most Republicans are willing to overlook the fact that the president-elect just got convicted. most Democrats would overlook the fact that Hunter Biden was convicted and he got pardoned.
Yeah.
They don't care because it's now my team, your team, which brings me back to what I was trying to say, that this it doesn't have to be like that, because up there I do not think that's how our politicians are looking at it. Like the recent president that passed away, please help me again with his name.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, thank you so much. God rest his soul. Looking at the funeral, the ceremony, I saw Trump having an incredible conversation with Obama. They were laughing, chit-chatting. Yeah. And so many people on Meta are confused about it. And I'm like, no, these people are political opponents. They are not enemies. You know, it's not like Obama is going to see Trump and then run up to him and try to put a headlock on him. No. These are political opponents. And in a civilized society like this, they should be able to meet and be like, oh, yeah, let's get a drink, sit down and talk. Because at the end of the day, why are they even political opponents? Because they both have different ideas on how to better the country. That's how it should be, right?
Well,
yeah,
that's typically the case, yes.
Yeah.
And Republicans and Democrats who have worked in Congress together, historically, they have been friends.
that's what I'm saying. They're just on different sides of the spectrum, of the same spectrum.
It's less and less common nowadays because you get a lot of very extreme people in there that are just so, there have been waves of people, after Obama was first elected, the Tea Party people, which really was just code for people who were mad that there was a black president. And so, it changed from just being about policy to being about actual hatred of just who somebody is. And what's funny about you saying, I mean, there's that video of Obama and Trump sitting and conversing and laughing together. Their differences, because of how crazy Trump is, their differences have not just been political.
Yeah.
Trump started the birther movement while Obama was in office, trying to convince people that Obama was born in Kenya. Just pure racist hate mongering. And so it is somewhat incredible.
I love that video. When I saw the two of them laughing,
Yeah, it's somewhat incredible to see Obama sitting there and joking around
it
with
was
Trump.
pure class.
And
It's a video that will live in my mind rent-free, because that's how it should be
yeah,
at the end of the day. So it's surprising to me that we still get to see people that are breaking up relationships over politics. Yeah. So yeah, to get back to your question, Ben, law and order, it is the most important thing of the land, because without law and order, we are not within the Constitution. We are just it's pure chaos. It's catastrophic when we do not make sure everybody follows the law of the land and there is order.
yes,
Yeah.
very well.